Okay, Bob, can you talk a little bit about what the methane levels are in the ambient air here today in Salem, and why these unique areas in Salem might have different levels than other places?
Yes, the ambient, let's just back up a second and just say that everywhere on Earth there is a methane level, an ambient methane level, and around 100 years ago it was around 0.87 parts per million, less than 1 part per million, in I think it's Mauna Loa, Hawaii. And now that ambient level is 1.87 parts per million. And you get very clean air out in Hawaii because you're surrounded by ocean. So here in Massachusetts, I've been observing once the air heats up and the sun comes out, around a 1.95 parts per million ambient air. Now that's methane in the ambient air. The methane level will change with the atmospheric pressure and the wind. What I'm seeing over many years now of running the analyzer is that a southwest wind is elevating us to a higher ambient level because I believe we're getting gassed by the Marcellus Shale. And when we have an east wind, we have a lower ambient, sometimes down close to the 1.87 I got in Situate earlier this year. Another factor here on the coast is low tide. Right now we have low tide and coupled with a low pressure system that's now waning. We're getting some blue skies now. But our ambient level here in Salem this morning was around 2.07 parts per million, which is higher than normal, but what's normal? We have a low tide and we have a low pressure system. So what we look for when we do indoor air testing is what's above the ambient air inside buildings, and we can detect that very easily.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is as good a day as any to do the testing in Salem, because you can control for what the ambient air is, and then you can indicate to people how much methane is in their homes.
Sure, it's very easy. I mean, we just take an ambient air level outside and we can see an elevated level inside houses, and that's coming from an unnatural source, so to speak. It's coming from your natural gas, which is, called natural, but it's not the naturally occurring ambient methane level that we have in the atmosphere at all times. Yeah. So that's what we look for, is a change from the ambient, and we're picking it up today.
Yeah.
Okay, we're over at 30 Boardman Street in Salem, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a sample of the ambient air in this room. So what we will do is we use a Tedlar bag and an aspirator bulb. The aspirator pushes one way and pulls the other way. So what we'll do is we'll clear any ambient air that's in this aspirator bulb and bring in air from the room around nose height. So I aspirate 5 to 10 times. I will clear and we'll have air from the room in here. Then I will take the tube and put it on the bag, open the valve on the bag, and push room air from the center of the room into the bag. I don't need to fill it all the way up. I just need to run a sample through my analyzer and turn the valve off. And there's my ambient air sample.
Hi, I'm Rich Stafford. I live at 30 Boardman Street with my wife, Perla. And a few years ago, the National Grid Company came at the request of one of the neighbors, I'm presuming, because there was a smell or an odor of gas on our street between our house and number 28. Turned out that there was a gas leak. They vented it by drilling a hole in the street, and then it took them a few months, I believe, in order to return to actually correct the situation. And that's been our experience. We understand that there have been a lot more gas leaks throughout the city of Salem, and they need to be addressed. If the gas wasn't leaking, then we wouldn't need more gas infrastructure in Massachusetts, which creates a problem.
Okay, we're over on Warren Street in Salem, and we've taken some samples from inside. This bag is from the basement, and what we're going to do is run it through the analyzer and see what kind of elevation we have over the around 2.07 parts per million. So what I'll do is I'll put my nipple on here and open the bag, and we'll be drawing out of the bag. And that'll run it right through the analyzer. And Clementine, do we see any number change? And there's the change. It's up to around 2.58, let's call it 2.586. So the basement was 2.586, a slight elevation. Okay, so there's that one. Then we'll go to floor 1. Has that gone back down? Yeah, it's down to the 2.1 level. And now we're going to do the first floor. And I'll put my nipple on and open up. And we're drawing right out of the bag there. And what are we getting now, Clementine? Beautiful. 2.095. And then we'll do the second floor. Has that gone back down? Yeah? Okay. So now we'll do the second floor. And look at that, that's nice and clean. We'll call that 2.099. $2.099 for second floor, and then we'll do the third floor. And there were no windows open on the third floor, were there?
We had a couple, yeah, there were a couple at the end, in the end.
There were the windows open around the end? Okay, because I was thinking that it was a little still in there when I went up. Sometimes the gas will collect at the top. Okay, so let's do the third floor, because that's back down to the 2087. And look at that, it's staying very, very good, 2.092. Okay. That's it. Well, hi, Donna. We just tested your air quality inside your house for methane only.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, methane occurs naturally everywhere, everywhere. So outside, your level was 2.030, 2 parts per million outside.
Yep.
In the basement, we had a slight elevation, and that's normal because you have all those appliances down there that may have a tiny leak or a little blowback out into your room.
Okay.
So it was elevated to 2.7 parts per million.
Is that concerning, or is it
No.
it's just normal?
No, and your first floor was almost ambient at 2.034, and a little higher on the second floor at 2.037. That's 3 parts per billion.
Okay.
So what happens is the gas, a little gas that may come off of your stove or any of your appliances downstairs will make its way upstairs, and your upstairs is well insulated.
Yep.
So that's why you may get a couple of blips higher.
Yep.
And this is no cause for alarm. These are very, very low readings with anybody with gas.
Yep.
But just in case, for participating in our study, I'm giving you a free gas detector, compliments of Gas Safety Inc.
Thank you.
And you just plug that in, and if it goes off, get out of the house.
Okay.
Because that's a lot of gas. That
All right.
that takes a ton of gas to go off.
Okay. All right.
So that would be a major problem. I did notice that you had an old service line.
Yes. Yeah, it's an old
If you
house.
ever smell gas, call 911 immediately, because there's an old cast iron main in the street, and you have a very old service line that's waiting to get replaced.
Yep.
You're on a list to be replaced, believe it or not.
Okay.
So, not to give you undue alarm, but just so you know, if you ever smell gas, don't hesitate to
probably
call
that,
911.
yeah.
Well, it could be a little fitting leak, but your service line and the main out here are scheduled for replacement. We just don't know how long that schedule is out.
Okay.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great.
Well, I would like to start by knowing just what you were doing in my house. I'm delighted to find out more about the air quality, but I would like you to explain exactly what you were doing.
Sure. We took an air sample from each level of your house, the basement, first floor, second floor, and third floor, at nose height. So what we're trying to do is get the ambient methane level inside your home and compare it with the outside ambient level of methane. And typically, if the ambient level inside the home is higher than outside the home, it indicates some fugitive source of methane, like a leak.
So you talking about methane, where does methane naturally come from?
Okay, so methane is naturally occurring globally, everywhere, at around 2 parts per million, just under, it's around 1.87 parts per million, and it comes naturally from decaying organic matter, swamps, the ocean when the tide goes out, animals, ruminant animals, that's a tongue twister, give off methane. That includes us, and basically cattle and cows who can produce methane, but that's all naturally occurring. The other source is from mining or now they're doing hydraulic fracturing, but it's basically from the fossil fuel industry.
I do want to ask you about fracking, but first I want to know what you found when you took these air samples.
Well, I found very low levels, quite normal in your house. All the windows are open. It was slightly elevated in the basement, which is typical because all your fossil fuel appliances are down there. The service line comes in there. There could be small leaks. It could be incomplete combustion, but we're seeing this in most homes. The ambient air outside was around 1.95 parts per million, and we got about 2.6 parts per million in your basement. The other levels on floors 1, 2, and 3 pretty much matched the outside levels because every window in the house is open. So that allows any gas that comes from downstairs or from your stove to go right outside.
Well, that's reassuring. But what if you had found higher levels? What would you tell me? Is there anything I could do about it?
Well, typically what I do when I find a level that's alarming to me, I bring other equipment in and find the leak. And if there was any indication that there was a hazardous situation or something that warranted further exploration, investigation, I would have done that. But right now we're seeing pretty much normal levels. There may or may not be a very small leak in your basement. It could be some incomplete combustion, but that, again, takes some time to do, and what we're trying to do now is build a database. If there was an alarm, I would certainly tell you.
Okay, so it's a little higher in the basement, a little over 2 rather than 1. At what point would you be concerned? What kind of reading would make you tell me I need to do something?
Well, it's a combination of reading and odor. The reading will tell me one thing, if it's elevated or not, and if I see levels up over 3 or 4 parts per million, then that causes me alarm. Coupled, I would check it out anyway at 3 or 4 parts per million more carefully, but also are there any odors? And you don't observe any odors in the house, and there is no prevalent odor downstairs of any gas. So what I would tell anybody is if you smell gas inside or outside your home, call 911, get a professional out to make sure everything's okay, and then you don't have to worry. So whenever you smell any gas, just call 911 and let them take care of it. And again, here, 3 or 4 parts per million over ambient would cause me some concern.
Okay. Now, earlier you mentioned fracking, which I don't think of particularly in the context of living in a city, but I'm concerned about fracking in general. Are you finding any kinds of gases or things in the air that could be attributed to this, or compounds that people should be aware of?
Well, we're in a study now that is not complete, and we are finding 106 VOCs in end-user natural gas. That would
What's a VOC?
Volatile organic compound. So it's on the BU Party Health Center, I think it is, website. You can go to that and see the videos that we did a health forum on natural gas. And we have a study coming out soon, it's not complete, on the VOCs in gas that may or may not be related to fracking or contamination in the old pipes. that are underground and been in the ground for 100 years or more, some of them. So there are a lot of different sources that could be pinned to this, but the end user gas is potentially harmful to your health if breathed in.
That's good to know, and it's good to know I don't have any now. Now, if I smell gas, I've always thought I should call the gas company. You said call 911.
Well, I always say call 911 because the fire department will be here within 3 minutes. The gas company is required by law to respond within an hour. So the fire department has the tools and the expertise to make sure, to see if your home is safe and you are okay to stay in the home. It may not seem that important today when it's 85 degrees out or 90 degrees, but when it's 10 below zero out and you have to go out into the street because the gas company says on the phone that you should evacuate your house and don't turn this and that on, I'd rather have the fire department come any day. Local people with the equipment and be here in 3 minutes rather than 30 minutes to an hour. So always call 911 in my opinion.
Well, regardless of temperature, I think I'd rather have the 3-minute response time too. Thank you.
Yeah, me too.